Hey you Stygian Dogs. It's late night in this Temple of Set, but I couldn't resist sharing this wonderful essay that I'd read earlier today. I was alerted to the essay by a friend of the channel, Mark Tallen, who shared this post. Stephen Graham Jones has written an excellent piece about Robert E. Howard and his Conan character. Available to read via the link below, non-subscribers can read 2 free articles. I highly recommend this one. Cimmerian September, Robert E. Howard. And the linked article is My Life with Conan the Barbarian from TexasMonthly.com. Many thanks to Mark, and please do give him a follow. Stephen Graham Jones is described as an American author of experimental, horror, crime, and science fiction. His last 3 releases are The Only Good Indians from 2020, My Heart is a Chainsaw from 2021, and his latest release, Don't Fear the Reaper. And you'll recall that Stephen Graham Jones is giving us a new Conan novella titled Conan, Lord of the Mount, releasing this month on September 26th. Let's have a look at the essay. And from Texas Monthly, My Life with Conan the Barbarian by Stephen Graham Jones, first published April 20th, 2021. Growing up in a community not even big enough for a post office, I lost myself in the stories of the warrior who launched the sword and sorcery genre. It would be years before I learned that his creator had also been raised in small-town Texas. I'm 12, and my uncle is walking me down the long hallway at the center of his house. We stop at what should be his linen closet, but when he opens the door, I see that it's crammed floor to ceiling and front to back with paperback novels. I can take 3, he tells me, and when I'm done, I can bring them back and get 3 more. Because I don't know any of these writers, these genres, I take 3 books that aren't like each other. One of Don Pendleton's Mac Bolan adventures, a Louis L'Amour Western, and a Conan the Barbarian novel. I don't remember the title of the book that took me on my first trip to the Hyborian Age. It could have been Conan the Destroyer, Conan the Defender, Conan the Magnificent. But I do remember it was a thick little mass-market paperback, meaning it probably wasn't written by Conan's creator Robert E. Howard, whose books were usually slim. This being 1983 or 1984, my guess it was probably hired gun writer Robert Jordan, who introduced me to this muscle-bound, lithe-as-a-cat Cimmerian adventurer. It didn't really matter who had written it, though. It had a more exciting cover than any of the books at the school library. In a week, I devoured the 3 novels I'd borrowed. With the Mac Bolan, I understood the breakneck action well enough, but I hadn't read any Ian Fleming, so I didn't really get the appeal of this American James Bond, or what he had to do with me. The L'Amour made a lot more sense. One side of my family farmed and the other ran cattle, so when the dads and granddads and uncles came in from a day chasing strays or wrestling with a contrary knifing rig, there'd be dirt in their sweat and blood, just like the heroes in that horse opera. I was hooked deep enough that I burned through the rest of my uncle's L'Amour collection and then waited at the drugstore's round rack for the next one. But Conan the Barbarian. Imagine you're a Blackfeet kid growing up in the windswept pastures 20 miles east of Midland with no other Blackfeet around. Like Conan the Wanderer, the Adventurer, the Outcast, I was out in the trackless wastelands far from civilization. The way I saw it, we'd come up the same. Conan's homeland of Cimmeria was high and lonely. From our back porch in West Texas, I couldn't see a single light. Cimmeria was packed with formative dangers. Every third step I took, I found myself entangled in barbed wire or jumping back from a rattlesnake. And when I mapped Cimmeria, the land Conan spent decades away from, onto my world, it could have been Montana, where the Blackfeet are. So I read these Conan novels for the adventure, sure. I was there for the priests of Set and the toppled kingdoms, for the taverns always snarling with violence. But more than that, I was there. I didn't tell anybody, but in my head, in secret, I was Conan. Like him, my people were from the cold and brutal north. I was just drifting through Texas to hop a few walls, steal a few jewels, maybe fight a giant spider or 2. When you're a kid looking over into adulthood and all its strange rites and incomprehensible motivations, one way to fend all that off is to align yourself with a different set of values. We all do it, with whatever we have at hand, be it punk rock, comic books, motorcycles, Star Trek. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that we identify with it so completely that it insulates us from the real world. Let us be Conan the Invincible, the Unconquered, the Valiant, at least to ourselves. Don't worry though, this isn't some lead up to me walking away from my childhood things. Those of us who believed in Conan at the right moment in our lives never stop believing. We might not grow up to become him, but we never grow out of him either. I still kind of want to be Conan the freebooter, I think that's maybe what Robert E. Howard wanted too. No, I feel that's what he wanted. I feel it in the urgency and the wonder he was able to capture on the page. But after reading Todd B. Vick's Renegades and Rogues, The Life and Legacy of Robert E. Howard, I have an even better sense of what Howard so desperately needed to escape. In Renegades and Rogues, we see a Howard who's locked in a dangerously dependent relationship with his mother. A Howard who has to shuffle through endless soda jerk shifts at a drugstore in his hometown of Cross Plains, Texas. It's not all doom and gloom, though. We also get a taste of Howard's heartfelt correspondence with the horror writers August Derleth and H.P. Lovecraft. We see him celebrate a story sale, and most importantly, we see him living his best life not in that small house in Cross Plains, but through Kull, a thinking man's barbarian, and his other creations, Solomon Kane, Elborak, Bran McMorn, Breckenridge Elkins, and of course, Conan. When your own life isn't giving you what you need, you step into another, right? For however long he could make this next story last, Howard was Conan, or Kull, or Solomon Kane. Instead of caring for his ailing mother or suffering the withheld approbation of the people he saw on the street, he could write his best self into larger-than-life adventures and freeboot his way, not just out of his own life, but into one so pungently real and vital that it still captivates us today. Yes, Howard was creating the sword and sorcery genre, but that wasn't necessarily his intention. As Howard himself once noted, he was rewriting history in the guise of fiction, and the history he was intent on improving, I submit, was his own. It's not just Conan stepping out of the shadows of that raucous tavern in the 1933 story, The Tower of the Elephant, and taking down the bully. It's Howard. He was living the only way he could on the page. He was using a pen to carve his own world away, and the person left standing was the person Howard believed he could have been if he had been born in a different age. This is how you save your own life, or it's how you try to anyway. You write your way over a wall and into a forbidden garden where you bring lions down with a broadsword, climb ropes made from the tresses of dead women, fight spiders the size of pigs, walk across gem-encrusted floors, and do battle with dark gods and crafty wizards. And when the spiders in this role-playing game are that big, the wizards that dangerous, then you have to make your character bigger, badder, faster, stronger. In short, to survive, you have to become Conan. That doesn't mean the dice always rolled in Conan's favor, though. Take the end of the Tower of the Elephant. After slashing the lion and crushing the spider, Conan holds the tower's jewel in his hands. And yet, rather than abscond with the treasure as we would expect Conan the Raider, the Renegade, the Rogue to do, he does the right thing. He uses the jewel to release an extraterrestrial god from its imprisonment, then walks away empty-handed as he watches the tower come down in a crash of shining shards. Did Howard have Conan do this because the Cimmerian was actually a decent guy, as interested in justice as his pulp contemporaries Batman, Sam Spade, The Shadow, and The Lone Ranger, all of them creations of the 1930s? I don't think so, no. The reason Conan doesn't walk away with his treasure that would have transformed his life is simply because Howard knew he was going to need to dress up as Conan again. If Conan were to sneak back out with his fabled jewel, then he would be swimming in gold and have no reason to start up another adventure. Conan the Triumphant, the Indomitable, the Champion. Not for long, please. If Conan gets away with the jewels, then Robert E. Howard has nowhere to retreat. No place that offers the heightened action, the moral stakes he felt sorely lacking in Cross Plains and that he so desperately needed. Howard doesn't actually want the Tower of the Elephant's jewel. He wants the wall around the jewel. He wants the lions in that forbidden garden and the guards who'll have to sneak past the pig-sized spider scuttling at him across the gem-encrusted floor, the dangerous wizard waking from his lotus sleep with an evil hiss. In Cross Plains, all Howard had to fight were his own demons, the commonplace disappointments of his own life. So in his Conan stories, he created fleshier, more impressive demons, demons he could actually knock down with the sword, at least for a while, or for as long as he could. At only 30 years old, a little more than a decade into being a published writer, all Robert E. Howard would be left with was that crash of shining shards. He took his own life in 1936, unaware that decades later his creation would reach a mass audience in comic books, movies, role-playing games, and 3 different TV series. For one glorious moment, however, this college dropout, one-time stenographer, and avid boxing fan strode up out of rural Texas and into the Hyborian age, and left the door open for the rest of us to walk through. For me specifically, it feels like. I grew up in the same part of Texas you did, Mr. Howard. Our birthdays are even the same. And when the world doesn't make sense, I retreat from it just as you did. And I stand outside the Tower of the Elephant and I smile because I know I shouldn't try to sneak over that wall. I know it's wrong and dangerous, and it is probably going to end in disaster, if not death. But I jumped that wall just the same. Some nights I even find you are already in there, Mr. Howard, and you shush me. There are so many dangers here, but then you hook your head to the side, a signal that I should follow you. I have been since I was 12, sir. And this splendid essay ends. Stephen Graham Jones is the Evanna Baldwin Professor of English at the University of Colorado Boulder and author of the recent New York Times bestseller, The Only Good Indians. This article originally appeared in the April 2021 issue of Texas Monthly with the headline, Conan the Vicarious. Well, I'm certainly eager to check out Stephen Graham Jones's work. I'll start with The Only Good Indians and then move on to his trilogy, starting with My Heart is a Chainsaw. And don't forget, September 26th sees the release of his Conan novella titled Conan, Lord of the Mount. Until next time, take it easy, you Stygian Dogs.